You have the option of paying some money and going to our hosted other sites. Otherwise, get out. Now, some people have different opinions when they think of GeoCities, the concept of GeoCities. The cultural reaction mostly seems to be really shitty websites that move a lot, that have background music and suck. That perception then leads to who cares about them? Why not get rid of them? And variations of that methodology to declare some group dirty and below you, and therefore we can do whatever we want to get rid of them, is an unfortunate echo that we've had throughout history. And we're doing it again. And they did it again. They announced they were going to shut down thousands and thousands of websites. Just shut them down and delete them as if they were never there. An archive team said, okay, that's not going to be cool. GeoCities is fucking huge. We had previously saved sites that were maybe a couple hundred megs. We were like, GeoCities has to be huge. So many things hit GeoCities. And we started to do investigations on it. And we found out that there were like Wikipedia had hundreds of thousands of links to GeoCities pages that had information. We found that, Google had so many links going into GeoCities. So many facts depended on being on GeoCities. We found places that were dependent on GeoCities. We just found everything was really dependent on GeoCities. Whether we wanted to admit it or not, GeoCities was like a major part of human knowledge online. And so we started to do it two ways. We have what I call the Earth First Sierra Club method, right? I'm Earth First, I'm the asshole, I blow up minivans. And then there's a couple other guys who wear ties who are like, I don't know what the fuck those Earth First guys are going, but we have some questions. So our we have some questions guy, Steve, went through Yahoo in the front door and just went in and was like, hi, we just wanted to understand some questions about why GeoCities is going down. And one of the things we wanted to know was, how big is it? Because we're, how big is it? And in parentheses, because we're going to dupe it, you fucks. And they wouldn't tell us, but the thing that was interesting was we think they couldn't tell us because they didn't know, based on two interpretations we had. One way was that the way GeoCities had been kind of sucked into the Yahoo universe, they didn't really on their side have any way of really understanding. They couldn't look at an account and say, this is a GeoCities account. So they couldn't do that. But the other one was we think that they ripped away so many engineers. We were pretty sure of this, that by the beginning of 2009, there were no engineers assigned to GeoCities. We're pretty sure that GeoCities had nobody watching it. We know this because it had a bandwidth limiter. And this has to take you back a little bit about GeoCities. GeoCities had a bandwidth limit. Here was the deal. You go to GeoCities, you get a free account. You get 15 megs of space, and then you can have people grab it. But here's the thing. People could only download so much of your site an hour. So if you had a website, and your website was X amount of megs, and three or four people hit it within 1 hour, it would go to a 503 bandwidth limit. And so that's part of what contributed to GeoCities not being considered a top-tier internet service provider into the 21st century, was the fact that they had this limit. That was a problem for us, because we would hit the limit constantly. And that's what was worrying us. We were like, what are we going to do? And then somebody on the, and I'll talk about this now, we didn't talk about it at the time, but we were like, how do we get around that bandwidth limit? What if we tell them we're Google? Surely they don't stop Google from hitting them. So we told it that our user agent was not the Google bot, but we found that it was searching for the word Google in the user agent and would lift the bandwidth restriction. So then we just started raping it. We had a guy, what did I call him? I called him either Plowshare or something. They all had code names, and there was Plow. And Plow had 100 virtual machines at his business open up a 100 megabit connection to Yahoo, and just suck it dry as fast as we possibly could. Now, GeoCities had this interesting neighborhood set up where you could actually, and it would take a while to go into it, but basically they had a really interesting neighborhood set up that got dissolved when Yahoo took over. Yahoo made it so you had a user ID, but eventually you could have things like Silicon Valley / circuit board / a 4-digit number, and that was your place. And you would tell them where you were located. Again, this is like 1994. So this was an experimental way of doing directories. Well, therefore, we just found the name of every neighborhood, every sub-neighborhood, and then just hit all 10,000 URLs. So that took about a week. And that yielded something in the order of 300 gigabytes of data. Now, we figure that the reason that it was like that is because over time, and this is interesting too, they would often offer you upgrades. They could go to 25 megs. You could go to this amount. You could, eventually you could actually go up to a gig, but you paid money. But if you stopped paying money, they would get rid of your account and delete you. If, however, you stayed with the shitball, no services, no frills, and didn't do anything, you would survive to the present day, and that's how we found 15-year-old websites that had been untouched since the dawn of internet time, was because they were cheap asses and didn't pay any money. Everyone who bought access and took up the upgrade and took the upsell got screwed and got deleted over history as they looked away. But we ended up with 300 gig. Well, that didn't solve everything, because we were like, what are we going to do about all those user accounts? So we asked the Google person, the Yahoo person, and the Yahoo person basically said, well, Yahoo has over 55 million users. That's all we can tell you. We were like, can you tell us anything else? They're like, no. At this point, we go to, the good guy goes to archive.org, lets them know about this. Archive.org had stopped saving GeoCities 3 years previously. They just stopped crawling it. And he said, here's a list of 6 million URLs we've picked up through Google. We would just hit Google. We had code that would hit Google and hit it for what I call old terms. Mosaic, transformers, something. It was something with modem, baud, and just go through all these old terms and see what websites it clicked to, and then go through. And this is how we're just randomly searching, going through this, and we just ended up with 6 million URLs that we then fed to archive.org, who used it to do their backup because they went to Yahoo, and Yahoo wasn't able to help them much. Very quickly, here's an example of a homepage that we saved, right? Crazy homepage, lots of crazy shit on it, ET. This person puts up lists of what they call experiences, paranormal happenings, where they would say things like, literally, I'm watching this game show and I had a sense of dread. Just a whole variety of things for their last 30 years. Here's a typical one, Rogue Cowboy. Rogue Cowboy is a military couple. He was in the Navy. All this whole thing talking about his history. But then we get to this one. This one is a memory site for a kid named Patrick Joe Mikey, who died in 1983. And it's part of a web ring of angels. And it's all these women who had put up sites commemorating their dead children who had died at some crazy age, up to and including 0. And what you don't really understand until it hits you is, if he died in 1983 and GeoCities was started for the public in general in 1995, that means 12 years after the death of her child, she was still affected by it enough that she wanted the world to remember her son. And that when she saw GeoCities, the one thing she wanted to say was, you need to know about PJ. You need to know how important he was to my life, and here's everything all about him. And she has pages after pages of her experience of having this son for a mere 2 years. He died, he went to the hospital, had an ear infection, but for some reason he had the infection spread and he died, by the way, in case you're wondering. But that's what, basically that's what we have here. This is and it was just wiped out, just gone. No record of it, gone. But storage is fucking cheap. What we found when we hit GeoCities, we hit it as hard as we could for 8 months. We discovered it was 2 terabytes of data. That's about what we found, about 2 terabytes, which can be had for $200 fucking dollars. And Yahoo couldn't do it. Why?